Okay, greetings to all. If anything I say today, this is Talk with an Elder. If anything I say today is helpful, educational, or makes you laugh, then I ask that you please donate to my Cash App or to my YouTube down here, PayPal. Okay? If you can see it, it may be backwards, but you'll see it when I put it and print it up. What I'm going to do today, I'm going to continue on with the absurdity of religion and point out some things that I think needs to be addressed and they're not. Okay, and the first thing I want to say, this may be offensive to some, is not to be intentionally offensive, but I want to say this, that anything I say is not meant to be disrespectful, it's not meant to be making fun of or mockery, but it's going to be the truth. And if you like it, fine. If you don't like it, refer to my post tomorrow and it will explain everything. Okay? Tomorrow, Thursday. Today's Wednesday. Okay, the first thing I want to say is this, is that as long as you have in your churches white Jesus, white God, white angels, white prophets, white disciples, in images and either paintings, statues, stained glass windows, or whatever, there will never be for people of color equality in your religion. Why? Because if you have a white God and God is the supreme being of all, and he's white, and you put him as white, then therefore you are saying to people of color that this is God. And when you see people who are white in subconscious, you are presuming that they may be God too. Because there was a survey once taken that most white men with long hair and a beard very seldom are mugged or have any problems, because people are under the impression that that looks like Jesus in some respect, which is false. You follow? And that's truth. So as a person of color, how can you identify with a belief system that puts everyone out in that religion as being the color of white people? Now, I'm not trying to offend white people. I'm telling the truth. Okay, understand that. Now, if you go around the world, look at other religions, if you want to call them that, the people that worship their gods or whoever look like the people. Buddha looks like the people that he represents. In India, the gods look like the people who are in India's. If you look in Hindu, the gods look like them. Every country that you go to that they have a god or something that they worship, that individual is represented to look like them. Now, I want to make a point of that too, is that in the Christian religion, you're taught in your Bible, it tells you in the Ten Commandments that God says this: thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness that is in the heaven above, earth beneath, or waters under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down to them nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God. That's what he says. But what do you all do? The opposite. You go into the churches and you'll see pictures, images, statues of everything that God said don't do, you do. Okay, now there are some systems that don't have images or things like God, but they trick you. Like, for instance, the Jehovah's Witnesses. They'll put out their little publications and they'll have little pictures and drawings and stuff. And that's not the prophets, that's not Jesus, that's just an artist's illustration. But you know that's what it is. Why would you even have that? As long as you have pictures, statues, books and things indicating that these images represent a divine deity, a God, something that you are to worship, then in subconsciously you are worshiping white people. And I'm saying this is my opinion, I call that a form of white supremacy. Not white supremacy. I'm going to say it like Dr. Neely Fuller says, white supremacy, because you're dealing with supreme beings. And if you look at that supreme being as being white, and therefore you are worshiping gods in the form of white people. Now, when I say this, that you don't believe in God, this is what I mean. If God said, don't make images, don't make statues, don't do any of this, and you do it anyway, then you don't care because God is watching. God sees all that you do. And if you know that God is seeing what you do when you do it anyway, that tells me that you don't believe in the God. You have no respect for the God. You have no idea what's going on. But if you're going to do something wrong and there were people present, you wouldn't do it. If you were going to go and commit a crime, let's say, and if there was a police officer in the vicinity, you wouldn't commit that crime. Why? Because the police officer there, he will see you, he might catch you, and you'll be punished. But if he's not there, you go do it, but yet God sees you. But you don't care because you really don't believe as you're supposed to believe in God the way that you are professing. Because God sees all, knows all, and does all. But yet you do it in spite of whatever God says don't do, you all do. God says don't lie. Y'all tell lies. What's a little white lie? Fuck that. It's a lie. All right? God says don't steal. You're going to steal anyway. God says treat people nice. You don't give a shit. You don't because you are hypocrites. I'm calling you hypocrites because you have the idea in your mind that as long as you can't see God, but God can see you, it's okay. You'll do it. You do it because like you don't have any belief in them. As a matter of fact, I'm going to paraphrase something that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said. He said that the doctrine of white supremacy has been taught in textbooks as a part of history. Now, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he understands that because when you have your books, understand this, whoever wins the wars writes the books. So therefore, all of the books that have been written about American history and everything have been whitewashed. And what they're trying to do, they're trying to go back in now and re-whitewash what was facts. Then they're going to try and change them over because of the fact this shit is coming back to haunt them. All right? Their history, they're not that they did anything, but their ancestors are responsible for a whole lot of negative stuff. And they don't want it to be shown as such. So therefore, they're trying to disguise it, saying, well, why should my kids be taught this, that stuff? It's not, yes, they should be. Because like we take a page out of the so-called Jewish book. Because the Jewish book says, never forget the Holocaust. That's why they have a museum about the Holocaust to show the world what was happening to them during the Second World War. So as long as the Jews do it, I say we do it. We keep it up. We make it do it. Because when the Jews forget and forgive Hitler, then we'll do the same thing. But until then, let's keep this stuff going. Don't let them tell you, whitewash it, and say, well, it's not really, it wasn't that bad. And oh, by the way, there were white slaves too, you know. Okay, great. Then show me white slaves hanging from a tree. Show me the pictures of the white slaves being beaten damn near to death or to death. See, the difference between what they call white slavery and black slavery, you want to call it that, white people were indentured servants. They may have been treated badly, yes, in some cases, but the difference is this, that if the white slave ran away, what could he or she do? They can go into the city, change clothes, and walk around, no problem. But if a black slave ran away, what can they do? They can't go into the city, change clothes, and walk around. They know that you are, or who you are, or what you are. So in your belief system, in your religion, and you don't read your book, you don't read the Bible, you let Reverend Wrong Path tell you what it says, or what you think it says, and you say, well, that's okay, it's good enough for me. But if you sat down and opened the book and read it for yourself, and you'll see things that's in the book that are not up to par, you might start thinking about, why do I believe this without question? And I'm going to go over some of those things later on in another session about the things that are in the book that need to be questioned, and they won't have answers for you. I'll give you a quick example. For instance, in the story of Noah, you all know about Noah and the flood. They made a movie about it with a white man. Okay, but that's okay. We'll get past that. What it is, it tells you that Noah and his sons and daughters and their wives built this big ship, boat called an ark, and on board They tell you they put animals on board the ark by two. They came by two. It doesn't say that really. It says the unclean animals went in by two. The clean animals went in by seven. That part they leave out. They don't tell you that. If you read it, they'll say the clean animals seven, unclean went in by two. Now the questions that I have is it was only one entrance into the ark. It was one door and one window. And that wasn't opened up until later. Now, with all these animals on board, what did they eat? What did Noah and his family eat? And I'm sure if they did eat, they had to go to the bathroom. So where was all the animal shit going? Okay, because it was locked in there. What would they use for lights? They don't answer that either. They can't answer that because they don't know. They make up shit and say that. Another thing too is that when the animals went on off the ark and they went down on Mount Ararat, where it was, how did they get back to where they were? How did they get back to the jungle, to the other countries or places where animals live? How did they get back there? See, these things are never discussed, never thought about because you're told to believe it, accept it, and that's it. As an old friend of mine, an old Christian friend of mine said this all the time, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. And that's it. There's no questions asked. But I'm going to go into more of those things later on down the line about that stuff. But until, I'll say it from, like I said from the beginning, until you erase, get rid of, destroy all of these false images, and I dare anybody to tell me that the images of the God, the Jesus, the prophets, the disciples, the prophets are not false, prove it. Because you can't do that because you know I'm telling the truth. And you shouldn't be doing that shit. And you don't believe in the God because God says, don't make these images. Don't do these things. You do it anyway. Which tells me you don't have no faith. You don't believe. You're all full of shit. And you're hypocrites. Okay? That'll take care of that part. Next time, part 4, I'll go into more details about things they can't answer with this here. But until you get rid of all that white in the religion, people of color will never have a fair shake. You'll never be considered to be equal. You'll never be considered, even in government. You look at all the government and all the presidents from George Washington up to Biden right now and all of them, and you look at the government and you look at, for the most part, all of the people that surround the president that are the senators and congressmen, very few people of color. It just started trickling in just a couple years or so ago. But up until that point, everybody is white. And if they're white and they don't give a shit about their own white people, they're not going to give a shit about you. Trust me on that. Now, I'm going to tell you a few things that you better pay attention to because shit is starting to change rapidly. I'm going to give some words, research these words, research the words inflation. Look at what inflation means, then recession. Okay? Because things are starting to happen. Pay attention. I told you all before, a while back in the beginning of the year, pay attention to China and Taiwan. Keep an eye on that situation because things are going to happen there pretty quickly. Things are going to start changing. Okay? Pay attention to that. Next thing I want you to pay attention to is listen out for the railroad. They're talking behind the scenes about possibility of the railroad workers going on strike because of the excessive work that's going on, and they're not getting any relief, and they are trying to get certain things done. And if the things don't happen the way they're supposed to, and if the railroad workers go on strike, I will just say this to you: you better hurry up and go down to the grocery store and start stocking up on shit. Because they went on strike some years back for 2 days, and shit was thrown all off balance. So if it goes on strike this time, be sure you run to the store and just start getting some stuff just for GP. Another thing too, you'll notice a lot of the stores now are closing early. Used to be open a long time because of the fact of what's happening. Stores are being robbed. They're adding more security, different things going on, and they're shutting down some stores. And they'll be shutting down some stores in your area as well. Pay attention to that. But you'll notice that a lot of stores are closing early. A lot of them are don't feel safe. Workers don't feel safe. And so they said, well, we're not going to stay open late like we used to. We're going to go down and see what's going to be happening. Okay? And another thing, too, is what's this I got down here? Yeah, okay, I said it, your part. Okay, more security. So those are some of the things you got to pay attention to. Also, again, the weather. Pay attention to the weather. The overseas, they look it up. They're fighting already. There's riots going on across the world. You're not hearing about. They're not telling you about food, about safety, about security. Different things that are happening on the planet that you better start paying attention to and prepare for the best, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Okay? Until tomorrow, when I go to my Thursday, where I don't give up, beep. I won't say it on this one because I talked to an elder, but we're going to be going some more into things I've talked about here, and we're going to give you some more information and things you need to know. Again, if I said anything to you that was helpful, educational, made you laugh, then I ask that you give up a small donation. That's all, not a lot. And I thank you for the time. Peace.